Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this new session hosted by Dataxis, which will focus on the state of the OTT market in the MENA region. I'm Thibaut Jury, the market analyst in charge of hosting and moderating today's session. And I am here with Tarek Aboulgod, the CEO and co-founder of Istikana. Thank you for joining us today, Tarek. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Thank you very much.
And I will be also here with Will Chapman, the Vice President for International Sales at Penthera. Good morning, Will, or should I say good early morning, because I believe it's quite early from where you are in New York City.
We'll just say good day. Thank you.
Yeah, good day and probably long day also. I'm just gonna wait 20 more seconds so the audience has the time to wrap up. And before that, let's have a brief overview of what we are going to cover today. We will discuss who are the different OTT players in the regions, their strategies, the state of the competitions, the state of the market in terms of AVOD and SVOD, what are the different business models, what's the potential in terms of monetization for those players, and then what are the challenges they are facing both on the technological side in terms of innovations, distributions, the state of the infrastructure. So what are the limitations those players are facing in terms of scaling, and then in the end, what to expect in terms of innovations, what do the actors see coming in the next few years in terms of content offering, UX, analytics, and so on. But before jumping into today's topics, let's have an overview of the state of the market, starting with the broadband side, as broadband is the main gate nowadays to access content. As you can see on the graph on the left, there has been a significant growth on the fixed broadband side, mainly on the fiber side and on the DSL one. But despite this strong growth, you see that there's still a bridge to gap between fixed and mobile connectivity. So focusing on the fixed broadband side first, you see that the number of fixed broadband subscriptions on the fiber side have grown tremendously. And in some countries in the region, this fiber penetration is almost already mature. If we look at the UAE, for instance, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all those countries have already a strong fiber penetrations. And if we take also other countries such as Israel, this penetration is growing tremendously fast too. In terms of customer base, the main internet service providers are Turk Telecom and Turkcell in Turkey, Telecom Egypt in Egypt, and overall in the region, Ooredoo, Vodafone, and Etisalat. And the main countries in terms of number of subscribers are Turkey, Egypt, Iran, and Algeria. But if you sum up all those access and subscriptions, you see that it only reached less than 40% of the total households in the MENA regions. However, the main access for accessing content through internet remains mobile. And as you can see on the graph on the right, the penetration rate for mobile is at more than 100%, even if you have some disparities in the region. Some countries reach 120, even 130%, and other countries are around 70, 80%. But overall, the trend is a strong increase in the number of 4G connectivity, even if you can see that between 2018, 19, and even 20, those increases has stagnated a bit. You see also the surge of 5G in 2020, and as of today, 5G is available in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, and auctions are still going on in other countries in the region. And commercial 5G is expected to skyrocket between 2022 and 2023-24, but we'll come back to that later in with some forecasts on the next slides. Moving on the devices available, starting with smartphone, as we can see, the smartphone penetration among populations is similar to what we saw earlier with the 4G, which makes sense. This penetration rate is almost similar as the computer one if we talk about households. Please note that on this slide, we are talking both about Middle East and African figures, and we'll come back to more specific figure about MENA later. Please note also that those slides will be available through our website after the end of this session, and you will be able also to catch up this session if you were not able to attend it live. So moving back to the graphs, as I said, smartphones penetration is expected to overtake computers in the coming years for two main reasons. First of all, because a growing number of people are consuming content through their mobile phone due to the fact that operators have started to bundle their mobile offers with more content ones from pay TV operators or from SVOD services, and also because the cost of data in most countries of the region has started to decrease over the last year, which make it easier to find whether bundles where you can attend to watch SVOD content through cheaper data offers, or because overall the mobile plans become cheaper with data. On the TV sets sides now, we can see that the fastest growing sides are on the HD TV and on the flat TV sides. But overall, SD remains the main access for TV, and it should remain the case in the next few years. You can see also that smart TV penetration is growing steadily, but as of today, this penetration is mainly concentrated into few countries, such as the flat TV penetrations. Moving on the TV distribution markets now. As you can see, the region is almost mature in terms of TV penetration because almost 100% of households in MENA have a TV set. The main access remained free-to-air through satellite for most of them. Pay TV penetration have remained a bit low over the last years. Regarding the mix, most of the access on the pay TV side are D2H2, which can be explained because it's quite expensive to build fixed infrastructure in the region on the cable or the DTT side, and DTH is the privileged way to access content from remote areas. You can see that the mix between DTH, OTT, IPTV, and cable has not changed a lot in terms of revenue. However, the overall revenue has decreased over the last years, and this strong decline can be explained by two main factors. For some countries, it's because the currency exchange rate with Euro and USD has quite changed in the last years. And as you can see on the graph, those revenues are in Euro now. So if we take the example of Turkey, for instance, the exchange rate between Turkish lira and Euro has quite declined in the last 2 years, while the number of subscriptions have remained the same, which is why the ARPU in Euro has declined, and overall then the revenue have declined too. But it's not the case everywhere. If we take another country, for instance, if we take Israel, for instance, in that country, it's the number of subscription on the DTH side that has declined. And what we can see is that on the other hand, the number of OTT pay TV subscription has increased. However, as those OTT pay TV offer are cheaper in terms of ARPUs than the DTH one, even if overall we have the same number of subscribers that are switching from DTH to OTT, as those OTT pay TV offer are cheaper, the overall revenue have started to decrease too. And this growth of OTT is actually following the strong increase in the fiber penetration in the country. And this is the trend we are facing in several countries. The growth of fiber in some central urban areas is driving up the number of OTT pay TV subscriptions. Moving on to the SVOD side now, you can see that the number of SVOD subscriptions overall in the region has increased tremendously fast. From less than 1 million subscribers in the MENA region, we are now up to 7 to 8 million subscribers in the MENA region, and reaching almost 12 million if we account also the African continent. On the revenue side, the ARPUs are still around 3.5 to 4 euro overall in the regions, but those ARPU are expected to grow in the next year following the launch of more premium offers, both from existing actors and from international new entrants. Regarding the players in the regions, the biggest in terms of subscriptions are Netflix, Starzy Play, Shade, and Amazon Prime Video. There's been also Apple TV Plus that has increased fast over the last years. However, as this growth is driven mainly by the promotion launched by Apple, for which you can access it for free for 1 year if you buy an Apple device, this growth is nowadays not really sustainable, as we don't know how the customer base will react as soon as the promotion ends in the regions. And regarding the competition in the market, there are around 20 available in most of the countries, and there are around 5 to 6 local SVOD services that are addressing niche content or niche market in the region, focusing on premium Arabic content. And I'm sure this is something we will be able to discuss later with our speakers. Moving on, the social network sites, they are gaining quite momentum over the last years in the regions. Although they are not gathering a significant share of revenue compared to other regions in Europe, the world, in terms of your audience, they are gathering a significant share of the global audience of those actors. You can see, for instance, that for Facebook and WhatsApp, they have become a gate for the users to access content online, but also a gate for the SVOD services to reach new audiences and to provide them content that they wouldn't have found somewhere else, or for which they wouldn't have an appeal to access on a standalone web basis. For instance, we were supposed to have a four-speaker location, which is not available today, but he would have told you that one of their strategy at Eros Now is to reach younger audience through social networks. And in that sense, they just launched a Bollywood film festival on Facebook for their audience in the MENA and the Indian regions. So this is something I'm sure we'll be able to come back later also. What are the mobile strategies of those SVOD actors? Last but not least, some forecast and what to expect in the next years in the OTT sites. First of all, probably a significant growth in the SVOD and OTT pay TV side, with more diversified content offers, more attractive bundles to launch, both from regional and international OTT services. Traditional pay TV is expected to stagnate quite a bit because OTT will be responsible for the main growth. But however, we don't expect traditional TV to decrease that much because it remains an important way to access premium content from remote area through the DTH. And OTT won't be able to replace those traditional offers as long as the whole region won't be fully connected to high-speed internet. Regarding the connectivity especially, we can see that OTT will in fact follow the growth of 4G, 5G, and fiber if we look at the figures. And 4G and 5G are expected to gain momentum all across the region. However, we expect fiber to increase significantly fast, but only in small clusters and areas in the region. And that's all for the market presentation. Now I'm moving back to my speakers. Thank you again, gentlemen, for being with us today. And I'm going to start with many generic questions, starting with you, Tarek. Could you just introduce yourself and give us a general overview of what you're doing at Istikana? What's your services offering, and what have been your journey mainly?
Sure. Thanks again for having me. So this is quite a long journey for us. We started Istikana back in 2011. And the need back then, or the focus of our work, was to basically revive old Arabic content, classical content, that was very hard to find in full and in good quality on, on TVs, on YouTube even. So we did a lot of digitization of old Arabic content that was extremely hard to find. And it brought a lot of nostalgia to the users of Istikana back then, which was an AVOD platform. Back then, remember, the penetration of the internet was not quite like today. The speed was low. It was quite expensive. So it was a totally different market than it is today. Moving forward, we started taking more, we ventured out into newer content. So we started doing, I'd say, more catch-up television. So we'd buy television rights of popular drama series, documentaries, cartoon series, and give it a second life online on the platform. Again, it was still AVOD. Until we realized that there was a particular content that was not being served properly on all platforms, which was Arabic independent content, Arabic independent films. There was an abundance of them. They were well produced. The issues they tackled were quite brave, unlike much of the mainstream television platforms would carry, and really had no outlet to be shown. At the same time, it was around the time of the entrance of bigger players in the market. So the cost of the content in acquisition was growing tremendously high for the mainstream, basically television content. So we focused on our platform on delivering Arabic independent content, and we changed the model from AVOD to SVOD. And then we faced a whole new set of challenges, which was payment. It is, and I think it was and still is, a very, very challenging problem in the market that I think has hindered the growth of all platforms in the area. And another thing I'd say would be copyright. The window we have for showcasing content is significantly lower than other more developed regions, more developed markets. So we're trying to sell the convenience, the library, the wholesomeness, the, since a lot of the content is unfortunately not protected on many illegal platforms. So our journey has been long, if you consider we started 10 years ago in this space. We've tried AVOD, SVOD, and we've moved from a potentially mainstream, all-you-can-eat kind of platform to a very niche, very specific platform delivering very specific content.
We can't hear you.
Sorry,
Tibble, we can't hear you.
And now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, but there might have an issue. I was saying that this is something we'll come back to later. The fact that if you want to make a business model on AVOD or SVOD, it doesn't only rely on the activity, but also what kind of content you want to promote to your audience. I'm moving on to you, Will. Now, can you explain us a little bit what has been your journey? Because I believe that you're quite new in the MENA region. However, you've been in the business for quite a long time in other regions of the world. What drove you into MENA, and what do you expect in terms of challenges in the regions from your B2B perspective?
Sure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody that joined. Yeah, Penthera has had quite a journey, and we are new to this region. We focus on, and our belief comes from, that video streaming is challenged, right? There are a number of challenging issues here that we could spend all day with, but we focus on the delivery. And delivery tends to be plagued by things that happen in that last mile. So we've worked here in the States, in Europe, and in other places in Oceania to help our partners deal with those last mile challenges. What essentially we do is we make sure that that video quality is always at the very top level. We make sure that it's delivered to the device regardless of connectivity, and offer our partners things like instant startup, removal of rebuffering, and those sorts of things that really keep the viewer engaged. The challenge, regardless of where you are, whether it's MENA, whether it's New York City, whether it's the streets of Paris, is that a person just wants to hit play and watch their content. They don't want to wait and see endless rebuffering. They don't want to have their viewing session interrupted in the middle by a pixel freeze or something like that. So we want to make sure that those dollars they spend for our partners to grab that content, as Turek has mentioned, that's hard to find, niche content. When they watch it, they want it uninterrupted. They want it to run smoothly. So we work behind the scenes with a number of partners, companies like Paramount Plus, Liberty Global, Showtime, HBO Europe, numbers of others, Sky, to really make sure that that video is available, whether the person's online, whether the person's offline, and regardless of device.
And some of them you just mentioned are probably going to launch in the region soon. So maybe they're also going to need your expertise in the MENA region to help them again to launch their services or to accompany them.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at how streaming has grown in just the last year. So I saw something on Friday where Conviva reported that Africa alone had a 273% increase year to year, third quarter 2020 to today, 273% increase in streaming. That is really taxing on an infrastructure. And when you're dealing, especially in an area like MENA, where you don't have necessarily the best infrastructure today, where you have device challenges and data challenges, those users are going to be looking for quality experiences. And when they find it that's combined with great content, they're going to stick. When they're challenged, they won't. There's plenty of other content opportunities out there for somebody.
In those topics, we're gonna tackle them later on, especially on the limitation side. I'm coming back to you, Tarek. You talked to us a bit about your content offers, where this content is coming from, because you were talking about independent film and movie. Are you dealing with producers? Who are the content owner of those content in the regions? And also, what is your audience coming from? Is it mainly MENA? Is it abroad? Is there an appeal intentionally for this niche independent content?
Sure. So our content is all Arabic content. It's produced in or about the Arab world. So our naturally our target is an Arabic-speaking population wherever they are. The content, there are like very classical content hubs in the MENA region. Egypt being the primary and the highest volume of content production. Syria at some point was, but not anymore due to the the political situation there. Lebanon has always been an interesting content production platform, but recently we're seeing more and more work coming in from Palestine, Jordan, and parts of North Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria. That is very interesting and doing extremely well on in festivals and niche competitions and outlets. We thought at first, to be honest, and our focus was to deliver this content to people in the area. And our biggest market was, like most other players in the area, was KSA, Saudi Arabia, due to the size of the population and their willingness to spend on entertainment, which, over the years has improved dramatically. But, back in the days, streaming was one of their major entertainment outlets. And until we realized that there is a better, maybe if I may use the word, a better market in the Arab-speaking populations that are living outside the MENA region. So the Arabs in America, in Australia, in Canada, and parts of Europe, they are more plugged into the digital world in terms of payment, credit cards, and all that. They appreciate the content because it is even harder to find that content in their parts of the world. And because this content is not your typical mainstream content, it really does address more realistic issues in a much younger and more realistic way from new filmmakers, new producers in the industry. So we're seeing a lot of traction in outside MENA Arab populations.
Okay, so that was one question I wanted to ask you, and I see it also coming from the audience. So I think we have a question from Zeno Gabbing, which goes smoothly with the discussion, because that was exactly the next question I wanted to ask you. Would you elaborate first, Tarek, and then we'll move back to Will. Would you elaborate more on the SVOD's payment challenges you are facing, and what is your advice to authors trying to set up SVOD platform in the region? Starting first with the question specifically on the payment side.
Okay, so we've tried to tackle this payment issue. We went as far as issuing physical prepaid cards, to using credit cards online, to bundling up with mobile operators in the area. And each one of those solutions to the problems creates other other issues you need to tackle. So, of course, with the physical payment, it's there's a whole cost of distribution. It just doesn't make sense. Only in very less developed areas in the MENA region. Okay, but it comes with a very heavy distribution cost. The issue of mobile payments, we thought would be ideal because, like you said in your presentation, the mobile penetration is significant in the MENA region. Everyone carries a mobile. If we can get the payment gateway through the mobile operator, our problems would be solved. They weren't solved. Back then, I think the operators did not see the value of OTT as a revenue stream. And the kind of relationship we had with operators was not healthy from our side. They had very high percentages from the revenue they took. The support was not enough, and the payment was very slow. So it kind of slowed us down instead of really putting fuel to our business. It just made sense to take the bite and go to credit card payments, which the problem is the usage is low, but definitely is more reliable than the other two solutions we have. Surely moving on, the operators are being more, they're more adaptive to the need to do something strategic for payment through their operators, through their business. And definitely the credit card usage has increased and become more reliable. And I think because of players like Netflix, because of people suddenly felt, there is a need to pay for good content. And Netflix is as good content in our area as it gets. So it opened up the option for many of the smaller players. You know what? We could use our credit card for content. So I think moving forward, I'm hoping that we'll get significant convenience in credit card penetration increasing, and mobile operators being more flexible with their terms and deals with people like ourselves.
So some of the issues you were mentioning are related to the MENA context. On your side, Will, because I think that Tarek mentioned few things that completely rely only on the SVOD actors itself, but you on your side are dealing with customers around the globe. Do you see that your customers are facing the similar issues, whether they are in other part of the globe? Or do you think that there are specific issues that are targeted regarding the payment system that you face in other regions of the globe and that are different from the one that you might face in MENA accompanying new customers in the region?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. In terms of payment and the challenges and those issues that we were just speaking of, that's not something that we necessarily get into, right? That's not what our bread and butter is. But what we see is to go on Tarek's point, is people are willing to pay for good content, right? They absolutely are. They're happy to do so if the content is good and if the experience is good, right? So we do business with both SVODs and AVODs. We in fact do business with some TVODs and some educational places as well that all need to deliver video content. But the challenge is it comes to that idea. If I'm willing to pay for the content and I'm fine to do so, it better be delivered perfectly. And I don't think anybody does this better than Netflix. Netflix realizes that, hey, this is an add-on. People are paying us for this. There's free content available, so we better be able to deliver it. And they've spent over $1 billion developing Netflix's Open Connect system. And the entire idea behind that is to move that content as close as possible to the viewer, right? That idea is paramount to the SVOD world. It has to be, that content has to be as close to the person's device as possible, because the more you reduce those last mile challenges, the better the content, right? So it doesn't matter if your content's fantastic and I want it. If I'm having challenges getting it and it's a frustrating experience, I'm not going to stick around for long and I'm going to churn. Now, that same situation exists for AVODs as well. While I might not be paying for it, they're competing for those dollars. They're competing for the person's eyeballs, and they're competing to keep them there so they can get those ad dollars. So to us, it all comes down to the fact that you need to have great content and you need to have flawless execution, specifically, even more importantly, if you're an SVOD. Now, if you're an AVOD, you might be able to get away with that a little bit because of the ad quality and it's free. But the challenges there are that sometimes ad delivery becomes even a bigger problem in terms of the quality of the experience. We've all seen that, where an ad might freeze the experience or an ad will play over and over and over and over again. And that's not good either. So I think that really, regardless of where you are in the world, one of the things that needs to be looked at really strongly is how are you delivering in that last mile? Because when that content leaves the CDN's edge, it's off in the ether. And you lose control of it. So finding a way to control that and eliminate those challenges is how you can grow pretty quickly.
It's 1:30.
Content.
And do you see an increasing number of people coming to you for AVOD services, or does your customer base is mainly AVOD still as of today? Because we hear a lot that there's quite of AVOD momentum, but is it true also outside of the US? Do you see more AVOD players coming to you because they need your help?
Absolutely. In the past, our business was built for SVOD. In the past, our legacy was a mobile offline product, right? The ability to take that device, say, I want to watch this movie, I'm going to download it, I'm going to watch it on my device when I don't have connectivity. And prior to the pandemic, that was pretty much the way we viewed it, that it was a travel, a nice to have, right? I'm going to get on a plane, I'm going somewhere where there's bad connectivity, I want to watch my movie, I'm going to download it into my device. But when the pandemic came along and travel shut down, we saw some interesting things happen that really kind of changed our perception as the way content is delivered. What we saw was an increase month over mobile downloads, about a 15% increase from March to April, April to May, and so on. But the interesting thing that we noticed was that people were downloading more and more content, but they were watching it while their devices were online. Right. And we really had to dig into that to try to understand. And what people were telling us and what our research showed was it was just a better way to watch, right? To avoid those last mile issues by downloading something into my device and then just whether I'm casting it onto a bigger screen or just watching it, it's really a better way. You eliminate those challenges. You take the question mark out of the equation. So we started to apply that same logic that we utilized for mobile download and started converting that into a streaming opportunity, right? To find ways to eliminate startup buffering, to find ways to eliminate the rebuffering so that during a stream, you have access to the content. So those AVOD clients have started to see, hey, there's solutions here. And there's solutions to ad delivery problems that we offer as well. So yeah, we're seeing a lot more push on AVOD. I think there are room for both. I think the hybrid model of maybe some AVOD content and some SVOD content for a more premium tier experience, that's also a real opportunity for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I will come back to the AVOD question later, but you mentioned something that the download side. Is it something that you also offer direct, offering the ability to your audience to download the content to bypass the connectivity issue? And if yes, did you see a surge in the consumption generated through download due, for instance, to the increase in traffic generated by COVID? And does it represent a significant share of the way your audience is consuming content, downloading it before consuming it?
We do have a download option, not for all the library. There is a rights issue sometimes with content owners when it comes to downloading their content. It's not really a significant issue on Istikana. Most of our usage is through streaming, not through download.
Okay, and another question related to that, because we were mentioning the context of COVID. How did you cope with the increase of traffic probably generated by the amount of people that probably increased a lot due to the pandemic context? How did you manage that with the state of your infrastructure, for instance? Did you see, for instance, a peak that increased then the latency and the difficulty for your people to access your content? How did you go through that?
So COVID for us was, like most OTT players, was a blessing. We saw a lot more people willing to, like look for different content and experiencing, like new films and shows. I'm not technically really, to be honest, sure what was done specifically. But I know that our tech team, they're based in Boston, did an amazing job accommodating for the extra usage, for the delivery, and we honestly rarely face technical bottlenecks or problems from increased usage or from low bandwidth, bad connectivity, whatever. It's quite an adaptive platform that we have built.
Okay, so moving on the issues regarding scale and growth, we talked a bit about the coming context, but not regarding this context. And let's say on a business perspective, what are the main challenges you're facing when you plan to grow your audience? Is it, for instance, the increase in traffic? Is it the UX design? Is it the infrastructure? Is it the cost of data, for instance? What are the most important challenges you face when you plan to grow your audience?
So basically, being a differentiated platform in terms of content, our content is always, well, so far has been our number one differentiator from the competition. And the cost of content has been steadily increasing over the years, year over year. And especially with the COVID situation, one not so interesting thing that happened was that the cost of the content suddenly shot up. So I think in our growth plans, we are very, very keen and very careful on always having exclusive and unique content on the platform at all times, renewed consistently, because people expect that from you. The consumption is increasing, so the rate of change of content and updating new content is always keeps us up. And I think focusing the market from a MENA platform targeting Arabs abroad, which is more costly to achieve, but definitely the life of a customer is much longer than a typical customer in the MENA. So geographically, we're switching to an export, if you may, an export platform. Then we export Arabic content abroad than otherwise, and just keeping our content very focused and relevant to our core audience.
Does that mean that now you are? Does that mean that now you are focusing more on the international expansion than your legacy activities in the MENA region?
Absolutely. And I want to say one more thing about a typical subscriber to Istikana. We also have realized that they have gone younger. Surely it's a function of the content, it played some role, but I think the usage of social media, those involved on social media, those that interact and engage on social media are naturally younger. So it makes a lot of sense to cater to their needs through these channels than classical content trying to hit older users.
Mm-hmm. And
so
Will, on your side,
our users becoming younger.
Okay, and I was about to ask the same question to Will. Do you have some of your customers that are coming to you and saying, we are operating in some region of the world, but we want to expand abroad? What are the issues those players are facing specifically to expand, for instance? Do they have, for instance, issue regarding delivering the content abroad? And how do you can help them then on those issues?
Yeah, and we have absolutely clients that are all over the place, whether it's HBO or Paramount Plus, for example. And in each of those regions come with different sets of challenges. I love what Turk said about the audience getting younger, though, because that's even a bigger challenge in terms of delivery, because the expectations are so high, right?
Absolutely.
I think about it, I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but I remember dial-up, right? Where I'd hit my phone to go online, there'd be a bunch of beeps and boops and bops, and 3 minutes later I was magically on the internet, right? Where it took 5 minutes to download a picture of a lion or whatever. But at that time, that's all I knew. And I'm a little bit more okay with waiting a second or two. My kids, half a second is entirely too long for anything to occur. So I think as your audience gets younger, that only increases the expectation. And as content continues to get bigger and more packed, you look at what Disney's doing, for example, spending extra money to make sure that I can watch Marvel in 4K. That is a lot. And they have to recognize that same expectation is going to exist to whatever region they are. So I think that all of those things create even a bigger need for you to really control that entire environment, right? When you let things go out of your hands into the ether, you have problems. We used to say about the idea behind an audience experience is that there are going to be problems there. And those problems exist, and they're not your fault, but they are your problem. Anymore, I'm starting to change that tune. I kind of think that it is your fault, because there are tools and technologies that are available that can eliminate challenges out there. And if you're not taking advantage of them, other companies will. Your competition will eat your lunch. right? It's no secret why Netflix is #1 across the globe. They do just about everything better than anybody else. And I think that as you expand into different regions, you have to keep that in mind. You have to keep in mind that the expectation level of most consumers, especially younger consumers, is I hit play, I should be watching something. Why is it taking so long? And they will leave. And that is fraught with peril for companies that are growing.
Yeah, the higher the expectation, the higher the frustration when the friction appears, and which leads to the issue of churn for those services. How do you cope with that, Tarek? The churn rate. And first of all, is the churn rate on your service still high? Did you manage, for instance, to reduce it over the last years? What was driving it the most?
So I think I hope that the last 2 years are what we learned from the past 2 years is here to stay. But generally speaking, during the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything, people just were more comfortable staying on board and just coming back and forth looking for content. Again, for us, the content is what keeps people longer or shorter than not. So as long as you like we were saying, you have good content delivered properly, okay, you greatly eliminate the churn possibilities of your core audience. We are seeing that because we are more focused, those who end up staying for a much longer time than what we were before. We had a bit of everything. So the life of a typical Istikana client is quite long because I think the content is different, unique, and delivery is okay.
Mm-hmm. And did the fact that you expanded abroad reduced mathematically the churn? Or for instance, let's take the example of your MENA audience. Would you say that you managed to reduce this churn for your MENA audience, or did your churn over-reduced by the fact that you expanded abroad and that the audience you have now abroad is more willing to pay?
Yes, I think it's a second one. The audience abroad is more willing to pay. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? One of the major problems we had with the operators was something we call the prepaid lines, where yes, they're willing to they're willing to subscribe, but they don't have enough credit on their lines to do so. And this is a constant problem for renewals. It's the same in credit cards to a lesser extent. We have a lot of fallouts because of the inability to continue a subscription. Whereas I think this problem is a lot less when it comes to our clients abroad.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I'm coming back to you, Will. You were mentioning earlier the fact that there are a lot of issues those players are facing when it comes to reducing the churn, but not where those issues are coming from. And I want to talk now about the state of infrastructure in the regions. From your perspective, because you have worked mainly in all across the globe, would you say that there is a significant difference between the state of infrastructure in MENA compared to what you've seen abroad? And is it a major limiting factor?
I think those same types of challenges exist everywhere, right? It's really hard to just say, well, this area has this challenge and this area has that, because, Saudi Arabia is different from Kuwait, which is different from Egypt. Each place comes with its own unique set of challenges. And part of the problem is that very thing. And that even if you narrow it down to a country, you've still got top end and low end, right?
Sure.
I think you have to look at video and solving video across the board as a lowest common denominator, recognizing that there's some high end things that you can do, but you have to go from that lowest place to make sure. You're not sure where your churn comes from. I'm positive of that. People churn for a number of different reasons, and what we try to do is make sure that quality of delivery isn't one of them. So we work everywhere from South America to New Zealand and in between. And our challenge there is making sure that regardless of the device, whether it's an old iPhone, whether it's a brand new TV, that quality of content is there because people are impatient.
You were mentioning the devices. Let's talk about the distribution now. Where would you say that your audience is mainly coming from, Tarek? Is it more from web, from mobile, from smart TVs, from other devices? What is driving the most growth?
So the highest number of usage is still from our web portal, but the highest growth we're witnessing is from TV apps, which is an interesting development in our business. We never, when we first started out, we thought that was a very, very, very long shot for people to be consuming our content through TV apps. Today, our highest growth is coming from consumption on TV apps, but the biggest volume still remains with the on the web.
Did you shift your strategy, for instance, starting to partner with, let's say, mobile operator to develop apps on their services, or with pay TV operators that have already apps for TV everywhere applications for their mobile customers?
Right. We basically developed our own TV app and are doing licensing deals with manufacturers.
You're doing it in-house, so the development. Okay.
Correct.
And on your side, Will, do you say that the distributions, whether coming from smart TVs or from mobile, drive different challenges on the technical perspective for your customers? Or in the end, are those challenges the same, whether we're talking about web, mobile, smart TVs, set-top boxes?
They're all a little different because the experience is different, right? My experiencing and watching this screen is that I'm going to be leaning forward and I'm going to be watching it. I'll probably be immersed in my phone content, right? Whereas a big screen, maybe I'm kicked back. It's 10 feet away. I'm chatting with my family. I'm watching something on there. So those experiences are different. And I think that each of them come with their own unique challenges. For us, in terms of streaming, there are different challenges that are involved with streaming to an Android TV versus downloading something to a mobile device that's on a 3G system, right? So again, all of those are unique, but they all come back to the same place. And that is, I hit play, I better see content. That it all comes down to that simple thing. And I think if you go back to, whenever you started as a child, you watched TV, you knew how it worked. You hit the button, you turned it on, woo, TV. That experience is what we should all be striving for, regardless of device, whether I'm streaming, whether I'm on a tablet, whether I'm on a phone, whether I'm on the web. That's the critical piece. And when that doesn't happen, people leave.
And talking about user experience, let's move to the last part of our webinar. I would like to spend a bit more time on that question, the user experience. Tarek, for you, what are the most important challenges? Is it, for instance, let's talk about the features, for instance. Is it the content discovery, recommendation, the UX design within the platform? Do you try, for instance, to match what are the international standards developed by Netflix, or do you go with your own standard, which is different? What are the most important challenges on that field for you?
Surely one of the biggest challenges is keeping up with what the major players are doing, like Netflix, and trying to mirror as much as possible, as fast as possible, as reliably as possible what they're doing, because the standard they're setting is becoming a standard for the industry. Our biggest challenge in our area and in the content we deal with is in our recommendation mechanism, because metadata is not something that is very developed in this part of the world. So finding the keywords, matching the genres and all that, I think consumes more time than more developed markets. But definitely it's something we are constantly working on, constantly developing and fine-tuning, just helping our subscribers find relevant content and sticking around for longer, and possibly making more informed content acquisition decisions, knowing that data in mind, with that data in mind.
And do you do that in-house also, the data analytics part, or do you work with partners that help you to track some of the metrics you want to?
We have like 3 chunks of analytics. We do Google Suite, so we're like compatible with other partners. We have an in-house I don't know what the word is, to be honest. So we do some work in-house, and some with third parties.
Mm-hmm. And on your side, Will, because I'm sure that you're discussing a lot with your customers and they probably talk about what they're facing in terms of challenges regarding innovations. What are the most important features that you see coming the next year regarding what those customers tell you on your day-to-day operations with them?
Sure. I'd actually like to go back to something Chuck just said, which is that idea of sticking with a consumer, right? Making sure that there's something there and discovery and recommendation. I think that that's critical right now. That idea of, hey, I'm watching something and I just want to keep him engaged. I want to keep that consumer engaged is critical. This weekend I watched a few episodes of Squid Games, and I was blown away at how fast that next episode rolled in. Right, I was streaming, and I didn't even realize the episode stopped, and I was 4 minutes into the next episode. That is a way to keep engagement going, and Netflix extends that idea even further with their idea of series download. Right, I'm watching an episode, I've downloaded it, I'm done with it, and now it's boom, it's right back into my phone already. So I always have something to watch. We offer our clients things like that too, that allow you to keep your consumer engaged. Right. I believe that recommendations is a big challenge for everybody because, at least from my own personal experiences, I spend as much time looking and trying to decide what I'm going to watch as I probably do watching something, right? I think that as companies look to the future, this idea of making sure that there's always something ready for that consumer to watch, they're thinking about you, that you're in their device, you're part of their life, that is critical as to the success of these companies as they move forward.
Is it something also you try to develop, Tarek, or would you also try to pair the user experience with, for instance, interaction outside of your service, let's say, for instance, on social networks, for instance, or do you also try to keep the audience engaged within the platform only? Because that can be two different approaches.
Basically, we're trying to follow the customer wherever they are. So we try to obviously try to attract them through social networks onto the platform, and just following them wherever they may be to get them to get them informed of what's happening on our platform, what's new, titles, the content, and trying to just invite them over and over again, keep them engaged and subscribed, basically.
Yeah, we actually have a partner who utilizes some of our technology just for that, to kind of leverage and find first-party data, right? So they're a free service, but you need to sign up and register in order to use some of our tools that we offer them, download and those sorts of things. And people have done that because they want those tools. They want that opportunity. And that gives our clients first-party data and allows them to follow and become part of that client, right? Part of their customer's world. So, utilizing tricks and tools to get a person to give you their information so that you have a better relationship with them is important, right? You want to be their first go-to. You want to be part of their world, and that's critical.
Is it something you could do also on your site, Tarek? For instance, you said earlier that you switched from AVOD to SVOD, but in that sense, increasing traffic through a free offer, which let's say urge the user to log in first so you can also collect his data, but then the content is free. Is it something that you could come back to now that there are more advertisers willing to invest in AVOD and that the state of connectivity is better? Or do you stick to SVOD because it's better, it suits better the content you want to promote?
Definitely, like Will was saying, each territory has its own set of challenges and opportunities. And while, yes, we look at ourselves generally as an SVOD platform, and that's where we are invested in, there could be opportunities and possibly solutions to address some markets with that, freemium model where there's some AVOD, some SVOD kind of thing. Definitely, that's something that's worth looking into. And surely today, AVOD has, in our part of the world, has transformed drastically. The number of people consuming, the way they're consuming, the amount of time they're spending streaming content. Definitely, there's a big argument for AVOD. Absolutely.
We'll see if it lasts after the COVID context. I have two more questions, but I would like to remind our audience that as we only have 5 more minutes, it's now or never if you want to ask your questions. So I'm moving to my next questions. 5G, we haven't talked about that a lot. Unfortunately, Lokesh is not here with us to talk about that. I'm starting with you, Tarek, because on the distribution side, you're the one directly connected to your audience. Do you see 5G as a game changer in the future, for instance, in the way you could deliver content, in the way you can improve the quality of the content your audience is able to play, in the way you can interact both with watching content on the one side and sharing it on the other, and developing features? Is it for you a real game changer, or is it too soon and you prefer to focus on other fields?
Too soon for us. Definitely, it's going to have its effect on us and the industry. And it's all, I think, a matter of improving and improving the experience of a typical subscriber, the delivery ease, whatever. I'm not sure yet how this is going to affect us and particularly us, to be honest. But it's definitely something that's coming, and we just have to deal with it.
And what about you, Will? Because I'm sure that your customer come with you with a lot of ideas related to 5G. What do you tell them when they ask your advice on what could be the impact of 5G on their business?
I have a huge question mark on 5G. I really do. I mean, wasn't it 3G a few years ago that was going to make everything work? And then wasn't it 4G that was going to make everything fabulous? So now it's 5G, and maybe it will. It's coming with faster speeds, lower latency, increased capacity. But when's it going to get here, and when's it going to be deployed? Great, right? When is that going to be? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Meanwhile, businesses are being made and broken right now. So look at 5G, but don't think that 5G is your savior, because as fast as 5G is going to be, is only going to be dwarfed by the amount and quality of videos that are coming through, right? 4K today is brand new and exciting. And I promise you, in a couple of years, it's going to be 8K coming down the pike. And the videos are going to be bigger and thicker. Things like gaming are going to be more immersive and three-dimensional. So the things that are coming right behind 5G are going to create the same backlog. And if you're dependent upon other partners to deliver your content, you're going to run into some challenges. Again, I keep coming back to this idea of control, right? You need to find a way to control that experience from the time it leaves your origin all the way in time for the person to view it. And if you don't, those are holes in the boat, so to speak, that can fill up and sink your ship quite quickly.
Is it something you're following too, the state of video, but not on the OTT side, but for instance in gaming? Is it something also you try to build expertise on and helping customers in that field? Or do you focus mainly on distributing video for, let's say, video entertainment like TV or streaming?
Our focus has been OTT, but what we have seen has really kind of made us take a look at some other areas that deliver video. The pandemic changed education probably forever, right? Kids in school all of the time need access to their content, and in certain parts of the world, that can be hugely challenging. We're working with an educational company in India. We're working with one in Africa to make sure that those students will have access to that quality education, right? That whether it's a lecture or whether it's the class, those sorts of companies are challenged. And when you look at EDU, you have other issues where kids watch the same thing over and over and over and over again. That eats up CDN costs. So solutions like ours can really save those companies money where there's not a lot of money. We also see enterprise video as an opportunity down the road where companies are spending lots of money trying to get things like this out to their employees. So there are other places. Gaming, I don't know yet where that's going to fall. I think it's going to be huge. I don't know how much of our solution will be, because that's kind of a live interactive thing, but I'm not positive as to where that will go, to be candid.
And what about you, Tarek, on your side? Do you also look at cross content with music or video? Because when we look at the OTT players in the MENA region, there are actually a significant number of them that are providing at the same time video, music, gaming, all kind of entertainment experience that not only stick with their core business, which used to be video. Is it something you try to look forward in the futures, diversifying the content offer for your audience?
So again, one of the beauties of being a niche platform and not the global leader or something of the size is that you always you listen, you watch, and you follow best practices and what works basically. I don't think at this stage there's much to say about platforms who have diversified into non-video content delivery. I'm talking about the MENA region.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's a step out of video or jumping on an opportunity.
Okay, so we arrive at the end of our webinar. Thank you very much for everyone who attended it and for the question you asked at the beginning of this webinar. Thank you very much for your time, Will, and for waking up that early to attend this this webinar with us. Thank you very much for your time, Tarek. I remind you that the webinar will be available as a catch-up on our website. You just need to go through the link you went to subscribe, and the slide that were displayed at the beginning will also be available and downloadable through PDF. Thank you again, everyone, and have a nice day.